Today on Trucks, we'll dive into the cab of the Harry Hauler and show you how to lay down some brand new custom floor pans. We'll also steer you in the right direction on a couple other goodies for our 34 International. After that, we'll introduce you to a pro stock truck pilot who's making a difference in the lives of kids from the inner city of Atlanta. That's all today on Trucks.
Welcome to this week's show, everybody. We're glad you're with us. You know, one of the biggest problems you run into when working on early model trucks is rust. Of course, we've already shown you how to fix rusty quarter panels and fenders in the past, but today we're going to show you how to deal with a rusty floorboard.
Now, on the Harry Hauler, you may remember that the entire floor was made out of wood, which means we not only have to make floor pans, we also need to make the complete support structure. Now, as you probably guessed, this is a pretty involved project, definitely not for the faint of heart, but you can do it, even if you're a beginner. We're going to show you how.
But before we get too deep into this project, let us show you some of the tools you're going to need to complete it.
There you go.
Thanks, man. Now, you're going to have a way to cut through everything from sheet metal to square tubing, so it's always a good idea to have a jigsaw and sawzall, as well as a good assortment of cut-off wheels and clamps. Also, keep in mind, a good set of hole saws won't hurt your cause either.
All right, let me bring you up to date on what we've done so far. Now, the first thing that you need to do is spend some time mapping out your new floor. This is, without a doubt, the most important part of this project because it's going to determine how everything lays out. For example, you need to know how and where your seats are going to mount. You also need to know the location of your shifter, your transmission, do you need a transmission hump or not, the steering column, the pedals, and the master cylinder. All this needs to be planned out before you do anything. Now, once that's taken care of, you can start building your framework. Now for that, I started here in the back and welded in these cross members out of square tubing. Now on these is where our seat mounts will go. Also, we wanted this whole center section to be removable so we'd have easy access to the transmission or the shifter. So to do that, welded in these little supports out of 1/8 inch C-channel. Now that'll give us plenty of strength, also give us a good foundation to weld in our new floor panels.
When it comes to seating, it's always best to pick the seats you're going to use for your project before you get started. That way there's no guesswork as to the mounting locations. Now for our seats, we went to Custom Fit and grabbed a set from their Street Pro Truck Series. Now these things are a fully adjustable, top-of-the-line leather bucket that have this really cool checkerboard design that look good on any truck. They also come with an adjustable headrest, but we're going to lose those so we can see out the rear window.
Now it's time to put these seats into place. Now you want to spend some time lining these up, making sure that they're even and that you don't have any kind of clearance problems. As you can see, our shifter is coming up right underneath the seat. Now obviously we can't use it that way, but there is a way to fix that problem. So we made these pedestals out of C-channel and square tubing. Now what they'll do is raise the seat up above the shifter, and that way we won't have that problem. Now these will weld right down on top of this cross member, but we're not going to do that yet because it's a lot easier to put the floor pans in first.
Speaking of those floor pans, you're obviously not going to find anything out there that's going to slide right into place. So the best way to do this is to make a template out of cardboard, then use it as a pattern to cut your metal with. Now the reason cardboard is the best way to go is because you can make as many adjustments as you need to until everything fits just right.
Now for sheet metal, we went to Bitchin' Products and got one of their universal floor pan kits. Now it consists of heavy gauge steel panels, a pre-formed transmission hump, as well as all kinds of bracing and hardware to put this thing together. Now all you have to do is take your template, lay it down on one of the pieces of steel, and then cut it out with either a jigsaw or a plasma cutter. Now we've got a little bit more trimming to do on this piece. Then we'll test fit it in place. Now we've got a good starting point.
With the rear panel in place, we can go ahead and start working on the other floorboard pieces, and we're going to use the same cardboard template process we did before. Now, like we already told you, we're going to make our center section removable, so we have to take that into account when we do our patterns. We also have to have access to the master cylinder here, but Bitchin' Products provides a template for that, so there'll be no guesswork. We will, however, have to take some measurements for our shifter opening.
Now for these side rocker panels that fit underneath the doors, things are a little bit different. As you can see, these original pieces are absolutely shot, but we can still use them as a pattern to once again make some cardboard templates. Then we'll just take the cardboard, transfer the shape to some 20-gauge sheet metal, and cut it out. Then we'll dress the edges with a grinder, and now we're ready to make some bends. Now to make those bends, you're going to need a sheet metal brake, like the one that's made by Brute Manufacturing that we got from the Eastwood Company. Now I've already got a piece clamped down in here, so I'm going to go ahead and make this first bend. Now using one of these tools is very simple. All you do is line up your marks, clamp it down, and then make your bend. Now, you can see how precise these bends are. If you're going to make these kind of panels, you need one of these tools.
Now that we have all the panels made, we can go ahead and test fit everything together. Keep in mind, you really need to take the time to make sure you've ground down all the welds, as well as any other obstructions that might keep the panels from laying down flat. Now up here on the front where the panels connect, we use the special flanging tool from the Eastwood Company, so everything will lay down really smooth.
Now, once you're happy with the fit, it's time to weld everything in. Now, the first thing you need to do is drill some holes down in the sheet metal through the cross members about 2 to 3 inches apart. Then take the screws that are provided with the kit and screw everything down to where it's nice and tight. Then make one final check, make sure you like the fit, and then one by one replace each screw with a rosette or a plug weld. This is also a good time to weld in your seat pedestals.
Of course, once all the spot welds are finished, we'll need to take a grinder and knock off the top of those welds to clean everything up and help the carpet lay down better. But we're going to take care of all that during the break. Stay with us. We got more trucks for you right after this.
Later in the show, we'll go for a run with a guy who's trying to keep kids from running with the wrong crowd. But up first, we got to finish up with the floor pans on the Harry Hauler.
Welcome back to the truck shop. Now with our floor pans welded in and everything cleaned up, well, you can see how these floors are supposed to look. Now like we said before, Bitchin' Products supplies this little door to give us easy access to our brake master cylinder. Now for the clutch master cylinder, we're going to mount the reservoir up on the firewall in the engine compartment. That way we don't have to have a little door for that. Now you also may be wondering why we're not going to use these preformed transmission humps. Well, the simple fact is we don't need them. We got plenty of clearance down here for the transmission, and it's a lot easier to carpet over a flat floor than to have to try to carpet over these. So if you don't need them, don't use them.
With all that said, it's time to mount our center panels. Now we need a way to hold them solidly in place, but we also want to be able to easily remove them. So what we had to do was drill down into the cross member for the self-tapping screws. Now these marks that Stace already made show us exactly where the spot welds are, and that's important because you don't want to drill through those. Of course, the front piece is going to be mounted using the same process we're using on our center panel.
With the floor and the seats in place, it's time to locate the steering column. Now, you may have noticed that we haven't cut any of the holes for the pedals yet. That's because I like to locate the hole for the steering column first. That's because it's really easy to cut away too much to get access to your pedals, and then you don't leave enough to support the base of the column. Now, these two lines tell us exactly where the top and the bottom of the pedal arms are going to come through the floor. That way we won't set the column too low.
For the steering column, we had to have something special, so we gave iDidit a call and got one of their 35-inch long chrome tilted columns that's already pre-wired and comes with all the billet dress-up items you'll need. Of course, we couldn't just stop there, so we also went to Halliburton and got one of their 3-spoked hot rod steering wheels to tie everything together. Here's that column, man.
All right. Now to place the column, center it right in front of you, and then take a pen and make a mark on the dash right over the center of the column. Now as you can see, we're moving it a little bit to one side of the factory piece. Now place your column and measure to see just how much drop you're going to need. Looks like about 6 inches for us. Now make sure that you don't drop it too low because you'll never be able to get in and out of the thing. Also, make sure you check at the base of the column so you're not getting into your pedals. Next, take the proper iDidit drop bracket, center it over your mark, and then drill holes and mount it to your dash. And make sure you have the proper bracing behind the dash.
Man, we've come a long way from those old wooden floorboards, haven't we?
Yeah, cut down on the fire hazard too.
Listen, we need to take a break right now, but stay with us. We got more Project Harry Hauler to roll at you right after this. This thing is really coming together, man.
No, it's like a brand new truck.
NHRA drag racer Sam Tompkins found his way out. Now he's helping kids from the inner city find their way out.
Welcome back to the interior rebuild of the Harry Hauler. Now, with the top of the steering column in place where it needs to be, and the hole cut in the floor according to our measurements, it's time to mount the base of the column. Now for that, we went to Giuliano's and got this really trick pivoting floor mounting plate. Now it'll not only hold the base of the column, but it'll also keep any kinds of heat or fumes from coming into the cab. Now, you also notice that we cut the hole for our pedals already. Now to keep any kind of fumes from coming through those, we built this plate that'll be held in place with screws.
At this point, you're probably wondering how we're going to prevent rust. Well, once we're completely finished with our floor pans, we are going to paint the entire floor, top, bottom, and especially the seams with this stuff called Miracle Paint we got from Hirsch Automotive. Now, the beauty behind this product is you can paint it right over existing rust and stop it dead in its tracks, or you can lay it down over the bare metal and stop rust from ever starting. Also, as one final precaution, we're going to take some seam sealer and run a bead around all these seams.
Now, to hook up the steering shaft, we went to Borgeson, got their poly stainless steel shaft, U-joints, and this support bearing. Now, we'll use this stuff to make the connection between the steering column and the rack and pinion. We'll come in here, make another cut, use a third U-joint there. Now, a couple of really important points here. Anytime that you use more than 2 U-joints, you've got to use the support bearing. It slides on the shaft, mounts to the frame, and keeps the shaft from flopping around on you. Point number 2, before you do any cutting or mounting, you want to make sure you're going to have adequate clearance around your headers and your motor mounts.
Now we come to the most important piece, and that's the gas pedal. Mr. Gasket gives you a couple options here in a floor mount style or a spoon style that mounts to the firewall. Now, since space is limited inside the cab of the hauler, we're going to go with the spoon style.
There's one last thing that you can count on when doing a project like this, and that's having to do some custom work. For example, remember we showed you that our shifter is coming up under the driver's seat a little bit. That means we'll have to make a special bracket to bring it out, as well as a new shifter handle to bring things up to where we can get a grip on them.
A lot of you guys have been asking us when the Harry Hauler is going to be finished, and we still have a long way to go, but today's project gets us a big step closer to completion.
Now today's tip has to do with something that we all need to be reminded of from time to time, and that is shop safety. Now that's because we usually get into a hurry, want to use the tool, can't find our safety glasses, so we go ahead and use it without it. And that is not the thing to do. So, to take care of this problem, all you need to do is go down to the hardware store, buy yourself a bunch of safety glasses and some earplugs, and then set them on every tool in the shop. Now you literally have to move the parts so you can use the tool. And then when you're done, just set them back in place. Now you'll know exactly where they are and you have no reason not to use them. And that is cheap insurance.
Overcoming hurdles in life is something Sam Tompkins knows all about. After all, he came from a small rural town in Virginia, co-founded the largest minority-owned core supplier in the automotive industry with just $40 in his pocket, and then there's this little weekend habit that makes him the only African-American owner and driver in the most competitive class of the NHRA.
A lot of times, people say, Sam, are you sure you want to do this? You sure you can do this? And I always feel, I say, yeah, I really believe I can do it. I know it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be difficult. I know it's going to be some ups and downs. But I know that if you keep doing positive things and you keep trying, you'll get to where you want to go.
Don't get the wrong idea here. This isn't a story about a drag racing champion just yet. This story is more about a racer who's trying to help kids from single-parent homes become champions of the human race. Sam started the Atlanta-based inner-city mentoring program called Another Way Out more than 10 years ago when he took a trip to the ghetto and got involved, instead of merely shouting some good ideas from the mountaintop of success.
The reason why we brought you here is not to try to make drag races out of anybody here. All we're trying to do is expose you to some of the things that you may not have ever seen. Whenever you try to do something that's a little different from what anybody else has ever done, you're going to get a lot of people telling you it can't be done. My recommendation to you is you don't ever allow anybody to deter you from trying to pursue your dream.
Not only does Tompkins Core Recycling Company conserve energy and reduce waste in our landfills, but the efforts of he and his mentors are also reducing some of the tragic waste that happens daily in the inner city of Atlanta. Does it work, you ask? Well, there's at least one shining example who just happens to be a shop foreman at Tompkins' business, as well as a member of his pit crew.
I'm 25 years old, and I started working for Sam Tompkins when I was about 19, straight out of high school. And the thing was, I was getting in a lot of trouble, and Sam seen that I was getting in trouble or whatever, and actually took me off the streets. I actually like being here and being with Sam and being able to run with the big guys, something you always dreamed of. Who would think you would be here with John Force and Tony Schumacher and them? Who would think that?
Well, Carlos, we know at least one guy who really did.
One of the things that I do have is the ability to focus, and I don't care how hard it is to do what I want to do, how long it takes, that doesn't bother me. I know that if I want it bad enough and if I work hard enough, I'm going to get it.
Now, by his own admission, Sam Tompkins has a long way to go before he can wear the crown of an NHRA champion. But if you really want to help him get there, just tell him he'll never be able to do it. And he, along with a whole bunch of kids from the inner city of Atlanta, will have a much different perspective on that. But whatever happens, at the end of the day, it's not NHRA titles that shape our future. It's our kids. And at least one man's doing something that really makes a difference for all of us.
You're not going to save the world overnight. And our goal is really not trying to save the world. If we only save one or two kids throughout the life of the program, I would say that that would certainly be a success. But I believe we're going to do better than that.
And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
Now, most shop tools are pretty ugly. That's why it's common to see people do some customizing to them, like we did our old floor jack here. Well, Zipper Motors has taken that to a whole nother level with their zip jack. Now, not only is this thing literally a rolling work of art, but it is a state-of-the-art tool, too. Now, it's made out of billet aluminum, only weighs 35 pounds, has a lifting capacity of 2,500 pounds, and a lifting range of up to 18 inches in only 9 pumps. Now, the zip jack rolls in at about $800. Zipper Motors is the only place you can get it.
You know, there's a whole bunch of cleaners out there, and that's actually part of the problem, because most times it takes at least 3 or 4 different types to clean your truck up. Wouldn't it be great if everything you needed came in one bottle? Well, McGuire's claims they have just the ticket with their brand new all-purpose cleaner called Extra. Now this stuff will do everything from degreasing engines and cleaning up brake dust to cleaning carpets and even upholstery. But the best part is it doesn't take a whole lot of extra cash at about $5 a bottle. That's going to do it for Truck Gear. Here's a preview of next week's show.
The Harry Hauler's back. Next week, the guys show you how the detail work can be the difference between a hack job and a real showstopper. Then we've got a 56 F100 that's not like any blue oval we've ever seen. Finally, we'll take our cameras down south to Moroso Motorsports Park for the Jet and Truck Nationals. That's all next week on Trucks.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. We appreciate you hanging out with us.
Yeah, we got all kinds of cool stuff to roll at you next week.
What is this?
This is the real thing from Sanderson, man.
Real thing indeed.
Man, no baffles, nothing. Flames kicking out the sides.
Trucks is an RTM production.